God has to exist. Question that everyone has asked for pretty much all of humankind. We've always been wondering and questioning where we come from. Where is it that we come from? Why is it that we are here? Is there a reason that we are here? There's only one thing that all humans throughout all of humankind can agree on, and that is that there is a way in which we're supposed to act. We don't agree on exactly what way that is, but we all agree that there exists a way in which we're supposed to act. I believe at the center of that question, the answer is and has to be God. 1. There cannot be an infinite chain of regress and causes and effects. There has to be an uncaused cause, as Thomas Aquinas put it. He put it this way: everything that exists has a cause. Everything comes from something else. And at the time, they didn't have the scientific knowledge and understanding to know where everything came from, but he knew that everything came from something. And there cannot be an infinite chain of that. Everything came from something else, and that came from something else, and then that came from something else. But there cannot be an infinite chain of that. There has to be, at some point, something which has no cause, which has no beginning, which has no end, which is just existence, which just exists in itself. There has to be something which is the groundwork and the foundation for reality and existence as we know it. There has to be. It is the only way for right now to exist. We would not be here right now to discuss and argue about whether or not God exists if he didn't. He has to exist. There cannot be an infinite chain of causes and effects for forever. Let's look at everything. Let's look at anything, from this shirt that I'm wearing. Let's say, I don't know what it's made of. Let's say it's made of cotton, right? And then that cotton, the material, originally came from a cotton plant. Where did that cotton plant come from? It originally came from a seed. Where did that seed come from? Another plant. Where did that plant come from? Another seed. Right? Keep going back and back and back. We eventually get to some sort of ancestral plant that it's an ancestor of the cotton plant, but it's not the cotton plant itself. And where'd that come from? Okay, let's keep going back and back and back, because that came from a seed, which came from another plant. And then we'll eventually get to some sort of even more ancient multicellular organism that exists on the earth. And then let's keep going back and back and back, and then we get to some sort of organism that existed in the water. Before that, it was some sort of goop of amino acids and, I guess, organic material that eventually came to become life, is what the atheist and the scientific perspective is. Okay. And then where'd that come from? That came from material and matter on an asteroid or from a star, after maybe it was star residue after a star blew up, or like a collapsing galaxy or something. We don't know, right? It came from something else. But then where did that come from? That eventually has to have come from something else. And then we know it has to have a beginning, and we call that the Big Bang now. We know that all the matter in the universe at some point in existence was condensed into the singular point, which they call which we call the singularity now, which is infinitely dense and has zero spatial volume. It was all condensed into this single point. All matter, all space and time itself was condensed into the singular point. But where did that come from? And then let's say a multiverse or something else created that universe, or started that Big Bang. Okay, where'd that come from? That came from, if we follow the scientific explanation and scientific idea, is that we'll eventually figure out a cause or a reason for the existence of something, then okay, something else is going to create the Big Bang. And then what created that? Okay, then something else created that thing. We would have an infinite chain, And we would never get to right now. We would never get to where we are right now if there's just an infinite amount of events going back. Because that means there's an infinite amount of time behind us, which means an infinite amount of events have to occur before we get here. How long does that take? That takes an infinite amount of time, which means right now cannot exist. It is just logically impossible for right now to exist if there exists an infinite chain of causes and effects. The only way for right now to exist is if at some point there is a cause which has no cause, an uncaused cause, an unmoved mover, something which everything comes out of, something which is infinite and which has no beginning, has no end, and is just existence itself. Has to be at the heart of existence. And that is what we theists call God. It is the infinite, uncaused, unmoved mover, uncaused cause. So before the Big Bang was the consensus for the scientific community, the vast majority of atheist scientists at the time, and before that time, just assumed that the universe was infinite and we just existed within the infinite universe. And as I said, that already that logically is incoherent, just because an infinite amount of time would have had to have passed in order for us to be here, which wouldn't. How does that even happen? I don't know, but regardless, the Big Bang Theory, which by the way was coined by a Catholic priest, a Christian, but anyways, regardless, the Big Bang says that there is an origin and a start to the universe. There has to be something which is outside of the universe to start the universe. Again, pointing back to God. And that something is infinite and intangible. We know that. We know that for a fact. That's what the Big Bang says. So the Big Bang tells us clearly that the universe has a beginning. There was a beginning to all of this and to all of existence. And from just logic and reasoning, we know that the universe is not infinite. But there has to be something which is infinite to cause all of this. There has to be something which doesn't have a beginning and doesn't have an end to start all of this. There's just one thing, one being like that, then everything else comes out of that. A lot of atheists and a lot of people will say, oh, well, this theory only gets you to an uncaused cause, an unmoved mover. It doesn't necessarily just point to a loving God, moral God, all good God. And you're right, but it proves God is infinite and God is intangible. We cannot touch him, we cannot see him, we cannot smell him, we cannot any of that. And he is infinite because he existed before all things were made. How do we know more about this creator? This uncaused cause has to be infinite and it has to be intangible. What else can we know about this uncaused cause? In the same way that, let's say hypothetically, you have no idea who C.S. Lewis is. You've never heard about him, you've never heard his name, you've never seen a picture of him, you don't know anything about his life, about what he believes, any of it. But you had a catalog and a long list of books that you knew were all made by a person called C.S. Lewis, and you knew they were all made by the same person. So you're like, okay, let me just read these books. Would you be able to figure out anything about this person by reading the thing that he made? By observing and studying the thing that he made? So by studying and looking at his books, you can see, oh wait, I think he might be a Christian. He wrote a book called Mere Christianity, and he in this, I can see the person that he is. Even though I've never met the man, I've never seen a picture of him, I've never heard his voice, I don't know anything about his life, but I can read the book that he made, and I'm like, okay, I think he might be a Christian. One, I think he might believe in morality. I think he might care about the transcendence and objective truth and objective beauty, and he might, I think he might care about like philosophy and deep thoughts about the universe and existence and morality and why we're here and humanity and all this stuff. Just by looking at the thing that he made, I can get a lot about who he is and the type of person he is, even though I've never met him. I've never spoken to him, never heard his voice, none of that. Or just by reading the words that he wrote, I can see and learn a lot about him. You can look at an artist's art, and just by looking at all the things that they have made, you learn so much about them. In the same way, if we just observe the world around us, what we know to be true, objectively true, because there is such a thing as, well, I believe this thing, and then you believe that thing, and then how do we know what is true? Well, there has to be an objective truth. There has to be something which is true regardless of whether I believe it, you believe it, or anyone else believes it. Something is just true because it's true. For example, 1 + 1 is 2. 1 + 1 is just 2. I can choose to believe that 1 + 1 is 3. I can say I want to believe that, but that doesn't make me right. That doesn't mean that 1 + 1 is actually, it might be 3. No, 1 + 1 is just 2. I can choose to believe that 1 + 1 is 3, but that doesn't make it true, or that doesn't make me maybe true. It means I'm just wrong. I'm just incorrect, because there is such a thing as as a correct answer to 1 + 1. It's 2, regardless of what I think or what I care or what I feel. It's just, that is called objective truth. And by following objective truth, we can observe the world around us, and we can objectively observe and understand the world around us. And that will lead us to understand the uncaused cause, which caused all of this, better. Because we know there has to be an uncaused cause. There has to be an infinite start to all this. There has to be an infinite creator. He may or may not be personable so far. We don't know. But we know there has to be an infinite creator which caused everything else, which he has no beginning in itself, and he has to be intangible. It has to be intangible because it was before anything that was made was made. Before anything that was matter, anything that was light existed, right? It was before space and time itself. We're talking about crazy, abstract ideas right now. But we know it exists, and we know that we can learn about it by studying the creation and learning about the creation more objectively. Objectively speaking, what do we know about it? So from studying the creation, we can see that it is extremely complicated. Everything is extremely complex and designed and intricate. This uncaused cause has to be a designer, has to be infinitely intelligent in order to be able to align atoms in this way, align molecules in this way, align chemistry in this way, to set the rules of physics, the laws of physics in a certain way, to set the force of gravity a certain way, to set the laws of thermodynamics a certain way. All these things, they're so extremely complex. It has to be designed. It is illogical to believe that it doesn't have a design. We already know there is a cause to everything. This cause appears to be intelligent, extremely intelligent. What else can we find by following objective truth? We know morality is true. We know objectively there is such a thing as something being right or wrong. We know objectively that there is a right and a wrong way to act. All humans throughout all of human history agree that there is a way that we're supposed to act. And some of us align better in that way and some of us don't. Who decides that? That is the question. And there has to be something which is unchanging, which doesn't change and has to be universal for all of existence to be the judge of that. Because morality would exist whether we're here or not. Like something would be evil or not evil whether we're here or not. Like we would see something and recognize something as being evil or good regardless of us being here or not. So morality has to be objective. Hypothetically speaking, if humans didn't exist in this planet, but all the other life existed, all the other wildlife existed, if we just, saw that one species started eating everything else, like just started killing everything else for no reason, not even eating, just killing everything else for no reason, just start killing stuff just start killing everything, just everything for no reason, just start killing everything, we would be like hypothetically speaking, if there's just one lone observer, you or me, or any human, regardless of who it is, 99.9% of us, we would look at that and we'd be like, whoa, that's wrong. I don't even know what's going on or what the reason is, but that thing you can't just be killing everything else just cause. And it's like, why? Why is that? There has to be something which is objective, which is outside of us. Following objective truth, we can see that objective morality has to exist. For example, we would look at the morality of some ancient cultures and we see how they would sacrifice their children or babies, or they would commit genocide to other tribes and stuff like that. We'd look at that, we're like, whoa, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. We look at that, we're like, whoa, that's wrong. But if they look at you and they're like, no, it's just our culture, it's just our way of doing things. If there is no God and then there is no morality outside of you. Your morality is just based on your culture and what you believe. How can you tell them, yeah, you're actually wrong because there is morality outside of us? And saying it is wrong would be our subjective opinion. It would be our Western opinion that what they're doing is wrong, but it's not actually wrong. It's just our opinion that it's wrong. If we see them sacrificing or doing whatever heinous evil it is, we would just have to say that it is our opinion it's wrong, but it's not actually wrong. But we know that that's incorrect. We know that for a fact. If we see something heinous and evil being done, even if it's a different culture, even if they claim to have justification for it or whatever, we see it and we're like, no, that's just wrong. There are certain things that are just wrong. So that means morality is objective and has to be objective, which means that it is ingrained into the essence of the universe. It was ingrained into when the universe was created, because it's outside of us, it is intangible, it is immaterial, and it's infinite, because it applies to all humans throughout all human history, and it always will, for all time, all of existence. So this morality has to exist. It's real, it is objective, and it's intangible. We can't touch it, we can't see it, we can't study it like with a microscope or anything, but it exists. Therefore, it has to have been placed here by the uncaused cause that we keep talking about and we keep going back to. Simply by studying the universe around us, physics, the world around us, all of creation, we can see that there is a creator. There has to be an uncaused cause to all of this. It has to be infinite in nature to avoid an infinite chain of regression. He has to be intangible, clearly just by logic, because it existed before everything that was made was made. It is the cause of all of matter and all of existence. So it's infinite, intangible. He has to be infinitely intelligent because of the complex design of everything. How it was possible for the universe to be created an infinite amount of ways, and almost none of them would have worked. But the single way that it was created happened to bring about all the life that we see around us, and all the other laws and things that put logic and order into the universe. So clearly, this creator, this cause for existence, has to be infinitely intelligent. It has to be moral, because there is a morality in an objective moral law built into the universe, regardless of our opinion of that or not, or our opinion of what it is or not. Just for now, just from simple logic and reasoning, we can understand that there has to be an uncaused cause, and this uncaused cause happens to fit every single check mark on the God of classical theism, which is the God of Christianity. Yeah. So yeah, as to why Christianity is the one true religion, that is a topic for a completely different video. But for now, clearly, the God of classical theism has to exist. He is a necessary being for existence in the first place. And thank you guys for watching.